On this Sunday night matchup between the Bengals and the Ravens, who do you think is going to come out on top and why?
I got to go with Cincinnati, man. Baltimore has just basically choked away their last couple of games, and they have just not played very well, excluding the New England dominance game. Um, you know what? I can't even say that because they gave up 26 points to Mac Jones. Um, I, dude, this team is so talented, albeit they don't have the greatest receiving core, just like Indy. But with Lamar Jackson leading the way and having arguably one of the best tight ends in football in Mark Andrews, they found a way to get it done offensively. They click. They're a first half football team, is what I'm trying to say. But in that second half, man, they lose their identity. They lose themselves. They're not able to move the ball effectively. They turn it over. They end drives in 3-and-outs. They end drive with field goals instead of touchdowns. It's just they're not doing well, and that defense has been exposed week in and week out. Now, their secondary has a whole lot of Pro Bowl names with the likes of Marcus Peters, Marlon Humphreys. Obviously, you have Marcus Williams back there, who they acquired from New Orleans this season, and they make their plays. Let's not get that twisted. You know, they have a pass breakup here, they have an interception here, a forced fumble there, but it's in little itty bitty spurts, like we were just talking about with Cooper Rush. These little itty bitty signs of life on a defensive end, on the defensive end, you need to be consistent. If you don't, you're going to let the other team score. That's usually the point of a defense, stop the other team from scoring. Baltimore has not stopped anybody. They blew a 17-point lead against Buffalo. They blew a 28-point lead against Miami. They almost let New England claw back in that game. Kyle would know how close that was as opposed to me because I didn't see that game. But the fact that you gave up 26 to Mac Jones, who's been struggling this season prior to his injury, I can't necessarily put faith in you to say that you're going to stop Joe Burrow. We know the receiving core that the Bengals have. We know the running back that the Bengals have. We know that the defense of the Bengals is better than what it has been over the last couple of decades. And it's just, they look to be getting back into their groove after the victory against the Jets, after the victory that they just had last week against, of course, now I'm going to
The
draw a blank.
Dolphins.
The Dolphins on Thursday night. Now, Tua got hurt, so they did face Teddy Bridgewater, but they capitalized in moments that they needed to. They made stops on defense, and they scored and moved the ball on offense. I think with Joe Burrow gaining confidence, with this offensive line looking to be a little bit more confident in themselves as well in terms of just keeping Joe Burrow upright, I think it's going to be not necessarily a blowout, but I could see this game going up to 10 to 14 points of a difference if this game gets out of hand early. Now, for Baltimore, your bread and butter is Lamar Jackson and an RPO. I need you to lean on J.K. Dobbins, not because Kyle and I both have him in fantasy, but because you know that if you keep the ball out of Joe's hands, that's going to force them to have to throw the ball consistently. We all know when Joe has to throw it and you take the ball out of Joe Mixon's hands, that eliminates the play action. That eliminates the opportunity for you to be successful to take the ball away from the other team. I need Baltimore to milk the clock, keep the ball out of Joe's hands, and find a way to attack the play action over the top. They do not have Jesse Bates at this moment in time because of injury, and their secondary, in terms of Cincinnati, has been questionable in certain games. Their success to victory ride and dies with Lamar Jackson's performances. Aside from just being the quarterback who touches the ball every play, he is also their leading rusher. Lean on J.K. Dobbins, which would open up this offense completely. I think they will be fine. If they don't, if they try to come out of the gate and just try to throw, this game could get out of hand and get ugly quickly. So again, I'm picking the Bengals for the fact of I think that they're going to be a little bit more confident. This is a big division game. Joe Burrow last season owned the Ravens and almost threw for 1,000 yards in the 2 games they played against them. And I think that chip is still there. So I'm going to go with the Bengals by about 10 points this game. But hopefully Lamar Jackson can turn it around and at least make this competitive.
It's kind of interesting because honestly, this is a tricky game for me to pick. I think I'm going to agree with you on this one. I am going to pick the Bengals on this one. I don't have a lot of confidence with it, but I have just more confidence in Cincinnati than I do Baltimore at this point in time. When I look at Baltimore to me should have a better record than what they have. They're 2-2, and you can make a very good case that this team should be 4-0. And when you look at their 2 losses, it's simply because they have had terrible second half performances. Like Kevin said, when they were up 35, I believe they were up 35-14 against the Dolphins late in the second half. they ended up screwing that game away. They gave up 28 unanswered points and ended up losing that game 42-38. Like, it was really embarrassing of a loss. And when it comes to last week against the Bills, they were up 20-3. Now, albeit it was a little bit earlier in the game when they held that lead. They ended up, I think, getting it to 20-10 at halftime. But even so, you have a 2-possession lead going into halftime. You got to be able to make some sort of second half adjustments to be able to give your team a chance. And in both of those losses, they have failed to really convert on third downs with the offense. And to me, that's where this all stems from. The fact of the matter is the teams that they're going up against are playing great second half defenses because they are not allowing Lamar Jackson and that Ravens offense to convert on third down. And it's giving the ball back against that defense, against the Ravens defense. And I think at this point, I think if the Ravens defense, if they're of the mindset that the offense is in a little bit of a lull, whether it can't get into some sort of rhythm where they're putting points on the board consistently, I think that team defensively, I think they get a little bit, I have a little bit of a lack of confidence to say, just because I think when they feel that the offense just isn't there to be able to provide any sort of support, I think that team defensively, they gave up points, they start making mental mistakes, and they start giving up points in the process. So overall, I just don't have a lot of faith that the Ravens can play a full 60 minutes that could lead to a win. I think that they could win like 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes throughout the game. But when it comes for a full 60, that 60-minute mark for them as far as winning games consistently, I think it's going to be something of note moving forward because I don't think they're going to be able to do it. And I think when it comes to the Bengals in this one, the Bengals have their own issues too. They have improved on the offensive line just because when you look at the last 2 games, they've only given up 3 sacks compared to the first 2 weeks of the year where they gave up 13. So they have improved in that regard. And hopefully that does continue for them going into this game. And I think there's a very good chance that they could expose that Ravens defense just because I think if Joe Burrow is given time to be able to move in and out of the pocket effectively, to be able to get the ball to guys like T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon out of the backfield, I think there's a very good chance that the Bengals can put some points on the board here. I think when it comes to them defensively, I think they have a very good chance to be able to slow down Lamar Jackson and that Baltimore offense. Like you said, Kev, I think when it comes to Baltimore's receiving core, they are relatively weak. Granted, they have some decent guys to work with. They have Bateman. They have Duvernay. They also have Demarcus Robinson as well. But, they go through hot flashes or they go through cold streaks as well. So you don't really know what you're going to get with the Ravens offense. They could be in a situation where they could put up 35 points or they could also put up 20 points. And it really is all dependent on Lamar Jackson's shoulders. And I do believe that they're going to key in on Lamar Jackson. And I think they're going to be able to slow them down effectively. But the only thing that I think that could work against them is if they give up decent chunk plays to J.K. Dobbins. I think if the Ravens are smart, they definitely lean on J.K. in this game to give that Cincy defense a different look. But I think when it's all said and done, when it comes to these AFC divisional games, I think they're always tough. They're well-fought wins, whoever gets it at the end of the day. But I do think that Cincy gets this one. I will say it's going to be a one-possession game when it's all said and done. I think Cincy does enough on the offensive side of the ball, and I do believe that Cincy defense can force a turnover from 2, or a turnover or 2, when they go up against the Ravens on Sunday. And I think, when you tie those factors in together, I think the Bengals come out on top. I'm going to say like 27-21. I think it's going to be a relatively close game, but I think the Bengals make some second half adjustments, and I think they slow down that Ravens offense, specifically in the third and fourth quarter. I think it's going to be the difference maker. So I'm going to go with the Bengals by 6 in this one.